I see nods. Okay, Ellen, see, okay, everyone. All right, at 6:08, we will call to order this meeting of the Mountain View Westminster School District Board of Trustees. We'll start off with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the
United States of America
and to the republic
for which it stands,
one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, everyone. And we'll move on now to the roll call.
Jose Gutierrez Jr.
I've got Jose. Thank you.
Laura Blakely.
Laura.
Devin Conley.
Thanks, Devin.
Hear me?
And
Ellen.
now we hear you. Yeah. And Ellen and Trustee Wilson is here as well. Let the record reflect that all 5 trustees are present. And we'll move on now to the approval of the agenda, item 1C.
So moved. Second.
All those in favor?
I actually have a question.
A question from Trustee Gutierrez. Go right on
in
it.
terms of the contracts for, you know what? Actually, I can talk to Yenda afterwards. If I may vote, I'll say yay or
all
aye.
Those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, and a motion made by Trustee Wheeler and seconded by Trustee Conley. The approval of the agenda passes unanimously. I'd like to, before we move on to item 2, I would like to take this opportunity to address our community on recent events surrounding the atrocious killing of George Floyd by the very police sworn to protect him, and the protests which have emerged not only within our own community, but across the nation and across the world. Everywhere people are coming together to demand justice for his killing, for Ahmaud's, for Breonna's, for countless others before them. People are also demanding that the world look itself in the eye and stop ignoring systemic racism. I'm not going to sit here in my privilege and pretend I understand what it's like to have the talk with my son. I don't have to tell him to keep his hands on the wheel and never, ever raise his voice or disagree with a police officer. And if he does get pulled over, I wouldn't worry that he may not make it back home alive. I don't have to worry he may not come home from a jog because someone chose to hunt him down. And I don't have to tell him that one day when he grows up, people may be afraid of him because the skin he inhabits. No parent should have to do this, and no human being should have to endure this. But they have, they do, and they live in a fear I cannot fully understand. Whether subconsciously or consciously, systemic racism has been accepted by all of us up to this point. It took the brave actions of a bystander to capture a killing on videotape, to lay bare a truth that has been pervasive throughout our nation's history. Despite our Constitution, not all men are treated equally under the law, and this must change. If we truly believe we were all created equal, then we must defend the basic rights of all of us. We stand at a critical time where we must face our collective flaws, acknowledge them, talk about them, and put an end to them through our collective humanity. In order to enact change, we must come together and initiate these uncomfortable conversations with our kids, with our friends, and with our elders. Our growth as a people and nation can only come through common understanding, finding common ground, and addressing these social ills head on. If we do not speak up, stand up, and defend basic rights for all people, irrespective of the color of their skin, then our silence is an acquiescence that the social systems that are in place are somehow acceptable to us. I'm here today to say enough is enough and to ask that we as a district explore ways to teach our kids about community and about our community and our country's rich diversity, and to appropriately teach them about our nation's history of racism. All our kids deserve a more just future founded in a solid understanding of the past, and they will be looking to us as leaders in this time of pain and healing. Let's all agree that this is something good we can cultivate from the year 2020. Let 2020 be the year we agreed to acknowledge our collective failures, began to build a stronger foundation of understanding, the year our humanity flourished by seeing opportunity in difference and love instead of hate. So I wanted to make that statement to everyone today, and I open up the floor to other trustees if they would like to comment.
I'd like to say something. The NAACP is holding a moment of silence tomorrow at 12:45 Pacific time, 3:45 Eastern time. And listen to what this moment of silence is. It's 8 minutes and 46 seconds. That's the amount of time that George Floyd had a police officer's knee on his neck. So I'm going to participate in that. I think it's a very powerful thing to think about people all over the country taking a moment of silence to honor George Floyd and to respect the movement that is rising up in his honor.
Thank you, Trustee Wheeler. Trustee Conley?
I wanted to thank you, President Wilson, for creating a space for this, giving voice to some of the grief and fear and anger that is in our own community and also throughout our country. And we as a school district have a role in being an anti-racist organization. It's something that I know we all take very seriously and is part of why we're here to do this work. So thank you. And thank you to everyone who is making their voice heard and supporting the members of our community.
Thank you, Trustee Conley. Any other, Trustee Blakely?
I wholeheartedly concur. And I think we're better than this. And it's time to show it nationwide. So thank you for your words.
Thank you, Madam President. That was very nice of you to be able to share on behalf of the board the thoughts and the condolences, but also the encouragement and the positive energy to try and make something grow again and flourish like our country and ourselves, either as individuals or as a community. There's always strength in numbers, but when we look at our differences, that's been the greatest weakness our country has had. We don't really look at ourselves as a stronger union if we don't have a certain color or skin, and it's bothersome. Because I've always said when push comes to shove, it's all of us or none of us. And we should be more representative of that flag, of our people, of our history. We should acknowledge more the pain, the hurt, but also the growth that comes from all this and becoming a better country. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Gutierrez. Looks like
Can I also say, I don't know if everybody wrote to Superintendent Rudolph. I did, and I sent out his message to a lot of people that I know. I want to say to Superintendent Rudolph in this public space how much I appreciate the video and message that he sent out on behalf of himself and for the school district. I thought that took a lot of courage. It took leadership, and I thank you.
You know, and if we could also, I was going to bring this up later on for future board agenda items, but if we could, I approached Dr. Rudolph and I'm approaching the board here to see if we could also come up with a resolution in support of this new beginning. I think that there's been some resolutions passed in some school districts and then in some city councils as well. So if you all don't mind, if we could explore that, that'd be great.
I've been working on a draft resolution that can be distributed more broadly with an outside group of school board members. And so I'm happy to bring that and offer it for, you know, however we want to change it or adapt it for our district, but as a starting point, we can use it.
And the other idea brought up to Allende was having a panel discussion. When I was in college, I'm going to date myself, we had Rodney King, and that was pretty intense. So what we did is we created a panel of different generations of students and faculty members who had experienced discrimination and racism in different ways in their own eyes from their own generational perspectives. And we were able to sit down also with a couple of members of the white community, and everyone expressed their ideas and their perspectives on what they were exposed to, and so that we could have a better understanding between the generations of how this looks different, but it's mostly the same. But our reactions to it may change, and hopefully they change for the better, not for the worse. And at the end, there was a little bit more healing and understanding between everyone, regardless of age or ethnicity and socioeconomic background. And it served at least to propel the conversation to continue about life experiences and being in America.
I think that's a great idea, Trustee Gutierrez, and I look forward to seeing the resolution that Trustee Conley is drafting, and we can talk more about what maybe a panel looks like, Trustee Gutierrez, and how that could work. I've mentioned something something similar in a previous meeting with Dr. Rudolph about how even in COVID-19, you actually have a broader capacity to bring people in to speak if we have to do it in this kind of realm, because they don't have to travel. So it actually may provide us more opportunities than if we want to look at it that way. But hopefully we'll be through this sooner than that, and this will be a thing in the past, but I think there's options and opportunities there. If there's no more further comments, I'll move on to item 2, which is opportunities for members of the public to address the board concerning items on the closed session agenda. Dr. Rudolph, is there anyone on the phone or online?
Nope, there is nothing there.
Okay, so at 6:19, we'll move on to closed session. Thank you, trustees. Thank you, cabinet.
Sorry, Trustee Conley, I have your phone unmuted also.
Thank you. Thank you.
It also looks like we may have lost Jose at some point. Oh, he's still in the breakout room. Okay, there we go. I think President Wilson is having a small issue here. And I do want to point out we have one public comment for consent. And then just so you know, the password that is listed for people to call in on the website is correct. The one on the agenda has the other passcode in it. So you're muted, Tamara. I've unmuted you twice now. Can you try to unmute yourself? All right, so I just unmuted everyone, and then y'all want to go back and remute yourselves. Tamara, can you talk now?
I can. I don't. I need to upgrade my Zoom. I think it's just every time I enter a new meeting, my audio goes berserk, and then it gets stuck in something new. Apologies for the delay.
Okay.
Okay.
I was saying that there is one public comment on consent,
Okay.
and then I have a clarification to what they said. So.
Okay. Well, before we get to that, let me pull up this, and I'd like to report that the board unanimously approved settlement agreement with regard to student number 202-004-0324. The district had the legal obligation to file a complaint in the face of the student's demand that Mountain View Wisconsin School District fund a private assessment. So with that, I'll move on to the item you just mentioned, Dr. Rudolph, in terms of public comment on consent agenda.
Yep. You want the public comment now? Or you want to take a motion, then go to public comment?
Oh, to approve the consent?
Yeah, so we're now at, yep.
Okay, so yeah, I'm sorry, we'll move on to item 5, the consent agenda. All items on the consent agenda are considered routine and will be getting all my pages approved in one motion. If discussion is required, items may be removed for separate consideration.
So you have one public comment.
Oh, I was just going to move that we approve. I thought
Public comment, or is, since we don't generally do questions or comments from trustees on this item, shouldn't we hear the comment before we vote?
Sure, call. You can take a motion. So you can take a motion, approve the motion, then open it up for comments, and then you can take action, which is normally how it happens, or you can take the comment now and then go through the motion and the approval of it. It's up to you.
So the first thing, I do a motion and then I don't do the full vote, and then I do the comment and then the vote at the end?
I mean, generally speaking, that's actually how it's supposed to go, right? Because you take
Okay.
the motion and that opens up the floor. But normally what happens is that we normally just take the public comment first, then trustees will vote, or trustee will make a motion, get second, and then there's a vote if there's no more comments afterwards. So
Quick question though about one of the contracts.
this is, and I have a correction for what they stated. So once I read the comment, I'll correct the misstatement.
Okay, well, I'm just gonna move on to the item and say, do I have a motion on the consent agenda?
I move that we approve the consent agenda.
Okay,
And Ellen second.
and now we open it up for comment. Trustee Gutierrez, you
Yeah, I just have a quick question about TechSmart, the contract. So I understood that we were going to have this be implemented last year, I think, with help from Google. And now this year we're continuing it. And I think the request is for the following year.
So this is the grant. We have another grant from Google through MVEF to fund TechSmart. So this doesn't cost the district anything.
Okay, so then my question is this something that now how does this fall into when we would have a review for, what's the word I'm looking for? We went through this with Teach to One, where we're going to have a committee to review pilot programs. There we go.
pilot program adoption.
So how does this fall into that?
This isn't a curriculum or anything else. This is just schools have opted to, on Thursdays, which is the half day, to provide coding to their students. It is a grant funded by Google. Schools are opting in to choose whether or not they want to use it. This isn't a district-wide curriculum or program or anything else. It's
Thank
not
you.
replacing anything. This is an add-on. Google is interested in making sure that that our kids have access to coding. Sites select whether or not they wanted to do it. The feedback we got from Cash on Therakoff is that it makes more sense that it's on Thursday. And so that's how this is approached. It doesn't cost the district a dime. And, we thank MVEF and Google for making this a possibility for us.
Thank you for the clarification, Dr. Rudolph. Appreciate it.
We take public comment now?
Yep. The Honorable Board of Trustees, I encourage programs like iReady and TechSmart Group through a public competitive process similar to textbooks, and at the very least, schedule public board discussion and not through consent agenda. Indeed, in our remote setting, iReady takes on a greater role than a textbook. An examination of feedback from students and families is warranted in this case. As for TechSmart, this program did not go through the competitive process that would at least test out other tools like MVBase, Tinker, and Free Scratch because it was a grant. Now, a year later, before you is a contract that draws nearly half of its funding from taxpayers. The expansion of TechSmart to other schools must be an indicator that this program is going well. That's wonderful. We need the best computer science. If TechSmart is succeeding, I hope we can expand its potential with district-wide sponsored hackathons and mentorships, especially for minority students. Please, however, follow a consistently applied public competitive and teacher and public involved process in choosing further instructions. Thank you for your service during these times, Christopher Chang.
Thank you, Dr. Rudolph. Are there any further questions or comments from board members? Okay, all those in favor of the motion made by Trustee Blakely and seconded by Trustee Wheeler, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the consent agenda passes unanimously. We'll move on now to communications from employee organizations. Are there any members of employee organizations that wish to address the board? I'm seeing a head nod in the no direction. How about district committees? Item 6B. I see Trustee Gutierrez's hand up.
Yes, quick update. We had our DLAC meeting yesterday. Heidi Smith, I'm glad to report, was a part of the meeting. We greeted her and welcomed her back. And then she was also able to introduce our friend, I call him Principal Chang, to the group who'll be leading it next year. It was a productive meeting, and the notes will be shared with the executive team, I think, by Ms. Heidi Smith. So just wanted to let everyone know we're having our meetings, we're taking care of business, and we're fielding questions. And thank you.
So, Jose, you mean Jeff Chang?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, you know what? That's a good point, Ellen. So for many of you out there, you may be familiar with Jeff. Some of you may not, but Jeff is back with our district, and he's taking this position now over Miss Heidi, that Heidi Smith is leaving behind. So we welcome Jeff to the team. We look forward to working with him in the future as well. Thanks.
Thank you, Trustee Gutierrez. If there are no other members of district committees, we'll move on to superintendent.
So today and tomorrow mark our promotion ceremonies, which are being held virtually. We did put the beginning of or at least I tweeted out the beginning of the promotion ceremonies today, but the rest of the video, because we identify students by name and picture, we actually have removed, we're not publicizing that. We're keeping those because we want to make sure that we are mindful that not every parent wants their kids' face and image being out on the internet. So today we're all the elementary schools. Tomorrow we have virtual promotions for the middle schools. And they do have words from President Wilson, as well as the principals, the students, and everyone else. So it's unfortunate that we couldn't have a normal promotion ceremony, but we really feel good about the work and effort to get it done. And then, I just have to thank the trustees for allowing us the opportunity to scramble and hire someone who could help us with the actual promotion ceremonies, knowing that would take a little bit off of PIO Hausman's responsibility. So even though she did a lot of work to get it done, and she really deserves the yeoman's effort and praise on this one, her and our videographer did some amazing jobs on bringing these films together.
Kudos to all the kids and the team.
Yes, congratulations, graduates. Thank you.
Felicidades.
So now we'll move on to item 8, community comments. This is the time reserved for community members to address the board on items that are not on the agenda. The board and administration welcome this opportunity to listen. However, in compliance with the Brown Act, the board is not permitted to take action on non-agenda items. Are there any speakers that wish to address us at this time?
No speakers and no comments. The only other comment I have is on middle school start times.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Rudolph. So seeing as there are none, we'll move on to item 8A under review and action. This is resolution 010620, establishing Measure G and Measure T Citizens Oversight Committee and assigning oversight of Measure G funds to Measure G and Measure T Citizens Oversight Committee.
Sorry for the long title.
Inclusive.
So thankfully, Measure T passed. So now as we are winding down Measure G, we would like to combine the committees. So we have one committee that would oversee Measure T and Measure G. There are several members of the committee on Measure G that are staying on to help us through this process, but have indicated that they are interested in allowing others to take up the charge now that Measure T will start to take off. So we recently put a request out in the school newsletters and also in the superintendent's newsletter that went out for anyone that's interested that would like to join. We have members that we want to say thank you to and that are also ready to step down from this committee. So this resolution would combine Measure G and Measure T, and then also update the bylaws.
Great, thank you, Dr. Restover. Have we had any responses to new membership?
We have one so far.
Yay, we'll take it. That's great. I saw him in the newsletter, so the advertising is definitely getting out. So thank you for that. Are there any questions from trustees on this item? And it sounds like there were no comments from the public. So additional comments, Trustee Blakely?
I just had a comment. When reviewing it, we only have 6 members and we're supposed to have a minimum of 7. So just call out to the members of the public, please, please, this is a huge time commitment, but it's an important role and we would welcome your participation on the committee. So thank you.
Thank you, everyone. So it looks like I need a motion on this item.
Sure. I'd like to move that the board approve resolution 01-060420, establishing Measure G and Measure T Citizens Oversight Committee and assigning oversight of Measure G funds to Measure G and Measure T Citizens Oversight Committee pursuant to section 15278 of the Education Code.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, and a motion made by Trustee Gutierrez and seconded by Trustee Blakely. The resolution passes unanimously. We'll move on now to item 8B, Board of Trustees recognize district retirees.
Good evening, trustees. It is typically our tradition to recognize our retirees, and during this very unprecedented time, we will announce our retirees, and also with the promise that next year, when we are back, we will have a much finer celebration inviting our retirees to return so we can celebrate them in person and honor their years of service. So without further ado, I would like to read out the list of retirees and just give you a little bit of a brief scenario of their years of service. And I'm doing this alphabetically. The first person is Albert Almeida. He retires with 6 years of service, and he was a bus driver for our district. And he was also our CSCA Chapter 812 president. Our next retiree is Blanquita or Kita Anderson with 35 years of service. She was a special education instructional assistant at many sites, and she was also a math instructional assistant at Graham. Joan Chaskin is next, and she's retiring with 31 years of service. She was also a special education instructional assistant at many of our school sites. Hetty Faherney with 19 years of service. She started out as a special ed teaching intern and has stayed with us after she earned her credential. She served as a teacher in the SDC classroom, a teacher at Bubb, Montaloma, and Stevenson, all with special ed students. Karina Galley is retired with 9 years of service. She was our school information systems manager. She helped us bring online registration, and she helped us with many reporting requirements for the state and the district and the federal government. With 21 years of service, we have Arturo Gomez. He worked as a night custodian while working full-time as a day custodian at San Jose Unified. He worked at Slater School and Crittenden Middle School, and with me way back in the day at Castro Elementary. Sarah Kearns Vela, 16 years of service. After volunteering at Huff, she was hired as a clerical assistant in the technology department. She moved on to department secretary in the maintenance, operations, and transportation department, and then on to the business department. And with 34 years of service, Ms. Kathy Loga, she started at Landals as a categorical clerk and then school secretary. Then she served at the district office as a department secretary. And then finally, as the executive assistant to Superintendent Dr. Rudolph. She coordinated our Mountain View Wisman emergency response training every year. With 21 years of service, Jose Lopez, he was a night custodian at Montaloma. With 19 years of service, Felicidad McAlpine. She was a school psychologist at many sites, and she worked with our Spanish-speaking special needs families. With 21 years of service, Miss Alicia McNally. Alicia served as a teacher in Bubb School throughout her entire time in our district. With 19 years of service, Ms. Kathy Patterson. Ms. Patterson served as a teacher in Bub School throughout her time in our district, and she was last year's Mountain View Wisman's Teacher of the Year. Cristobal Pichardo, with 16 years of service. He served as a maintenance worker specializing in air conditioning units. And with 17 years of service, Mr. Robert Poling, he served as a teacher his entire tenure in our district. And lastly, Ms. Connie Russell, with 17 years of service, she served as a part-time library secretary, for Graham Middle School. So we would like to honor our retirees for their dedication and hard work, and they deserve the best retirement ever, and we hope they enjoy their new journey. So staff is asking that the trustees recognize our retirees for 2019-20.
Thank you so much, Ms. Geisels, and congratulations to all the retirees. We appreciate all your years of dedication and hard work. So thank you so much. May I have a motion, please?
Do we have any questions from the board or?
Oh, are there questions on the retirees? Comments, Ms. Blakely?
Oh, I was just going to make the motion. No, unless
Okay.
someone wants to.
Okay.
I move that the Board of Trustees recognize and honor our district retirees and thank them for their many years of service to the children of our school district as presented.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, on the motion moved by trustee Blakely and seconded by trustee Gutierrez, the Board of Trustees unanimously recognize our district retirees. Thank you so much. We'll move on now to item 8C. Board of Trustees recognize employees' years of service.
Thank you, Trustee Wilson. What we are looking at is a wonderful list of all of our employees with their years of service. We thank them for their hard work and dedication because they are vital to the success of our students. With 10 years of service, we have Maria Coco Ayala, Marley Baron, Maria Beatrice Class, Danielle Gorsepi, Erica Navarro, Shamir Simmons, Crystal Solorzano, and Leanne Tavares. With 15 years of service in our district, John Aker, Christy Bruce, Michaela Espinoza Cortez, Ann Hanneman, Carmina Jenkins, Sheila Martinez, Derek Mulkey, Cindy Nguyen, Elizabeth Perry, Ann Scott, Gladys Simon, Christine Silva, Lisa Sterner, and Greg Sundstrom. With 20 years of experience, Stan Aderman, Regina Aguas, Norma Mesua, Megan Bin, Daniel Chamo, Stephen Chesley, Susan Chesley, Estefania Landa, Karen Milos, Patricia Ontiveros, and Melanie Ramirez. With 25 years of experience of service, Kathy Bauer, Patricia Bocio de Galasso, Yolanda de Diaz, Bonnie Elgood, Marina Romano, and Jennifer Timmons. And with 30 years of service, Patricia Allen. And finally, with 35 years of service, it was a pleasure to work with her at Landals Elementary, Miss Paula Doritis. So staff is asking that the trustees honor our years of service employees.
Thank you, Ms. Geisels. Are there questions from trustees on this item? How about comments?
They're all amazing. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. That's so many years of service. It's like history that we're seeing when you read off the names, and you can really feel that. So we want to thank everyone for their dedication to our district. With that said, may I have a motion, please?
I make a motion that the Board of Trustees recognize these employees for their years of service and thank them for their service.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Jose, are you there? Okay, any opposed? Again, a motion moved by trustee Conley and seconded by trustee Blakely. The motion passes with 4 ayes and 1 absentee. Thank you, trustees. We'll move on now to item 9 under review and discussion, which is the Mountain View Wisconsin School District Summer Learning Plans.
Okay.
Thank you, Ms. Bauer.
Good evening, everyone. I'm gonna. Oh, I need to be able to share my screen.
Do you have permissions?
Dr. Rudolph needs to give me permission to share my screen,
Okay, let's see.
or someone.
Try it now.
Okay. Thank you.
Awesome. I'm gonna.
All right. Okay, oops. Here we go. Okay, so I'm happy. Why is it doing this tonight? I am pleased tonight to present to you our summer learning plan for the summer of 2020. You know, we're aligned to our strategic plan. We want all of our students to be prepared for high school and 21st century citizenship, and we want to eliminate achievement gaps the best that we can. My computer does not like me tonight. Our purpose of providing these summer learning plans is to give students additional opportunities to practice skills in reading and mathematics over the summer, and also provide families with some enrichment activities and an optional schedule for the summer. So our plans were developed for students entering grades K through 9, and I want to take this moment to really thank the team at Los Altos Elementary. They had developed their summer learning plans, and then they shared with us and let us use some of their content and their formatting. And so we are very appreciative of our collaboration and partnership with them. Our summer learning program will begin the week of June 15th and will run for 5 weeks. And each of our plans contains a sample schedule for families, which they can adjust. It has reading activities and links to free books, math activities to support learning, and tools, links to iReady, and then enrichment activities posted each week based on the skills in our district's profile of a graduate. Our plan, and we're currently in process of hiring 2 teachers per school to support students over the course of the 5-week program. We'll be posting these plans to the district website, and all the school sites will create a Google Classroom for summer learning. Teachers will add students to the Google Classroom if requested, so that teachers can work with any interested students. They can do Zoom check-ins, office hours, have students share projects and learning. But families also have the option of just participating on their own and picking and choosing activities as they go over the course of the summer. So just some samples for you to see. This is a sample schedule. The schedule looks pretty similar for all grade levels. You can see they have some profile of a graduate activities and then some time for reading and math. And this is, again, another sample. This is included a sample schedule, what they could do with reading and math, and the profile of a graduate activities. So some sample reading activities. I picked a couple grade levels for you to see. So each grade level has a preview. It talks about what students either experienced in the grade level they're in or what they're going to experience in the following grade level. Gives them just the parents some information or the family some information about some key skills or standards that kids will focus on. And then there's choice boards and different activities that students can choose from to work on over the course of the summer. And it's varied by grade level. You can see it's reading, drawing, maybe having a child dictate a story, creating a scrapbook, just different ideas that kids can do at home. For 4th grade, again, same thing. The skills to prepare for 5th grade. And then again, prompts for kids to work on while they reflect on reading both fiction and nonfiction text. So there's a fiction section and a nonfiction section. This is just a snapshot of the different activities that kids can do with the book or that they're reading. 8th grade, getting our kids ready for 9th grade and providing some bridge activities. So some of the things that are important for kids as they move into 9th grade for reading. And then again, reading practice choice board for kids to practice their skills over the course of the summer. Some math activity, again, for transitional K, you can see there's the review and practice, talks about different ideas and opportunities that kids need to get ready for the next year. And then they have links to math games, math activities, and YouTube, which is creative math. This is just a sample. You can see some of the activities that kids can do with their families, or if they sign up with the teacher from their school site. Fourth grade, similar thing. There's 10 days of math review activities that are core concepts to the grade level that kids can look at and do on paper, plus links to Khan Academy, links to UCubed, and then also links to iReady. This is a sample of what that looks like when kids would go into the fourth grade math activities. You can see the concepts, and then the kids can click on the different pages to get the work. And at the bottom, they have links to different tools that will help them with solving problems. And then our eighth grade, we have 10 days of activities for all kids. And then we also have activities broken down by the math course that students were in when they completed, or when they complete eighth grade tomorrow. So they have different options depending on where they were. And this is just a sample of what it looks like, the summer math activities. So for the profile of a graduate, you're familiar with all of the attributes of a profile of a graduate. And each week we'll populate links each week we'll populate the links for the different days. And this is just kind of an example. So Mondays is about being tech savvy. So this is just an example of talking about tech use and your health and screen time, different videos to watch, a writing activity. Tuesday is Travel Tuesday. In this case, they're learning about what a passport is, talking about where they're visiting, and being able to go visit different places across the world. Wednesday is a variety of topics. This one happens to be mindfulness. MA Thursday is really Math Thursday. So it's a variety of really interesting math activities for kids. And then Feeling Good Fridays, looking at videos that highlight good things that people do all around the world. And so our next steps are really to continue our process to hire our teachers, to get the website page and the Google Classroom set up. We'll be communicating to families tomorrow, and then again, hopefully on Monday, about how to enroll. And then, to be honest, this is something we've never tried before. So we're going to monitor student participation, and we'll make adjustments as necessary as we go through the 5 weeks. With that, I am happy to answer any questions that you may have.
All right, trustees. I know I have a few questions, but it looks like I see Trustee Blakely's hand up.
I just had one question about the teachers. Would we expect to primarily be hiring from within our current Mountain View Wisman staff, or would we be looking outside?
So we're trying to hire currently from within our staff and teachers that are currently at each site, so the kids have some connection to them.
That's great. Trustee Conley, you had your hand up, and then I'll go to Trustee Gutierrez.
I had some questions about the opportunities for interaction between the teachers and students. I know some of the younger grades getting excited about the online learning materials it appeared to be related to the relationship with the teacher and knowing the person they were working with and getting them invested and engaging in those activities. So I'd love to know if there's going to be, for parents, how their child would be interacting with the teachers.
So right now the plan would be that the teachers would, for anybody who wants to participate, the teachers would enroll them in the Google Classroom, and then they would set up Zoom meetings. So there'd be some live interaction back and forth so the kids could get to know the teacher. There'd be opportunities for kids to get help on different assignments. Also, opportunities for kids to share their projects. So if they're working on a profile of a graduate activity that week, opportunities for kids to share and to learn from each other. Just trying to make it a positive way to keep kids engaged over the summer.
Will that be a little bit like our classroom had 2 classroom Zoom meetings a week, and there were small reading groups and small math groups and things like that? Will it be a little bit in the same format, or will it be different?
I think it'll be a little bit in the same format. Again, we're kind of flying blind as we go here, but the goal would be to have the Zoom check-ins each week, and each school would set their own schedule. And then the school would then work with the families. I think because we don't have a sense yet of how many people are going to be interested or involved, we're going to kind of have to try it for the first week and modify as we go.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Trustee Conley. Trustee Gutierrez?
Thank you, Madam President. Excuse me. Hey, Kathy, so I have a question for you and a request. So in yesterday's DLAC meeting, one of the biggest concerns that we had that was voiced by the community, the Spanish-speaking community, was still struggling with the technological features behind distance learning, whether they be connected to the program through a phone, a laptop, a PDA, you name it. There's still issues there in terms of accessibility and understanding how the process works. So I'm hoping that for summer school, and I'm hoping we'll also address this for the fall, is there a way for us to have a tutorial and then have that also be posted online so that these parents can see this, or some sort of outreach to the Spanish-speaking parents that need help so that we can get them going to understand how all this works? Because by what I understood, a lot of these parents who had these types of issues, for the most part, some of them were able to participate and help their kids out, but a lot weren't. For whatever reason, I don't know if they reached out or not, but that was an issue for them, and they brought it up to our attention yesterday at the LEX meeting.
I think you make a good point. I think we could create a tutorial once we lay out with the teachers at each site exactly what it's going to look like. So I think we could definitely do that, so that parents have that. And I'll have to think about who could be my outreach person, because our SCEFs and our at-risk finish Friday. So I don't have them at my fingertips, but I think I can work with Ms. Smith and Mr. Chang and Mrs. Priscilla and see what we can figure out to do that. And you bring up a good point. So we will work on that next week.
Okay, and if you need any extra help in terms of translation or outreach or what have you, that for someone that speaks Spanish, I'm game to help out. You just let me know and I'll do what I'll step in. I'll help out.
Great, you've been recorded.
Right on.
Thank you, Trustee Gutierrez. I have a question. It sounds like there's sort of a 2-option thing here. You can actually sign up for the class, or it says on slide, I don't see the number here, but that families also have the option of participating on their own. So I guess they could step in, do what they like, tailor it to what they think they need, and then go about their day. In the event you wanted to enroll, how does one enroll in this?
We are going to send that information on Monday. So we'll have a link per school, and then we'll send the information out in English and Spanish. Then kids can go to the link, and then the teachers will enroll them. So that'll all come out early next week.
And when and if they're enrolled, does the results of what they do in any of the items that, or any of the days, does that get entered into the PowerSchool portal in terms of like iReady placement and like how they're doing on different activities in iReady?
So it doesn't we don't put it into PowerSchool, but we'll be able to track their progress, especially through the iReady portal if they're working in iReady.
Perfect. Okay. Thank you. That's all that I had questions I had. Are there any additional questions from trustees? And any members of the public, Dr. Rudolph? We'll move on to trustee comments. I just want to thank you all for getting this up and running by grade levels so quickly, given all of the other extreme constraints that have been going on lately because of our shelter-in-place orders. This is a Herculean feat, and it shows. I just want to say thank you for all your efforts on this. Trustee Gutierrez?
I just wanted to also thank LASD, right? So Jesse Spicer, thank you so much. All right, appreciate it. Take care.
Any other comments from trustees? All right, we will move on to the next item under discussion, which is middle school start time recommendations, item 9B.
All right. Here we go. So we've had this conversation a couple times, so I'm going to skip through probably 30 something slides, unless you have a question. I know Trustee Gutierrez had a question on slide 5, so I'll make sure I go to that one before I jump to the rest. So we're here to talk about the results of the middle school start time and to bring back the feedback that we've collected. Just so everybody knows, again, this Senate Bill 328, which was approved in 2019, requires that by July 1st, 2022, that middle school start no earlier than 8 a.m. and 8:30 for high school. And for us, that means that our two middle schools need to adjust their times from 7:50 to a minimum of 8, as well as from 7:55. So let me just count my slides real quick. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So this is Trustee Gutierrez's question real quick on this slide. But let's jump to the feedback.
You know, it was
I know you. I know. So let me go here real quick. So we had 4 different solutions. The board, in the last time that we brought this back, actually stated that they wanted to look at 2 different ones. So essentially, we looked at the possibility of an 8:20 start time, and then the second one was an 8:25 start time. The difference between these are about the number of passing minutes between each period, as well as the amount of time for break. So in this case, you have 4 minutes and then a 12-minute break. And then the other one, you have 4 minutes between passing and a 15-minute break. And that's really the fundamental difference here across the board. So first, when we took this feedback to the different committees, DAC brought up a valid concern about the travel time from Mistral to Crittenden, because that is actually the school that is the furthest away where students would be assigned, so that this could impact a family that has multiple kids. I had to go back. Obviously, if I do it today, the traffic would be pretty light. But I went back to January 16th, which was a school day, and I looked at 8:15. And what we see is that the typical transition time is somewhere in the neighborhood of 7 to 16 minutes. And that just depends on whether or not there's a train coming, which route you take. Do you go over Shoreline or do you go over Rangsdorf? But what we notice is between 7 to 16 minutes, it is possible to traverse from Mistral to Crittenden and get both kids there on time. The second piece of feedback was, if I have a kid and some of the students who are zoned for Crittenden are zoned for Los Altos High School. And so the second concern was, well, Crittenden is actually the furthest school away from Los Altos High School. So as a parent, if I have to drop off a middle schooler and a high schooler, would I be able to get there in time? So again, we went to the 16th. We looked at what happens if we were at 8:30. So assuming that you barely got your kid to the school on time, and then you have to get over to the high school. And I believe their start time is now 8:45, I think is what they're looking at. And so what we notice is that it's typically around 10 to 20 minutes. The longest could be 10 to 22. And again, a lot of these factors are about which way you take. Do you go and you get stuck at Central where the train is going? Do you go around and go above the bridge on Shoreline and then cut over? So there's a lot of different variables across the board. What we do feel comfortable with, though, is that staff typically report. So staff are required to report 15 minutes before the start of school. And then each school tends to have some type of process to allow kids to sort of hang out at the schools a little bit earlier with some type of supervision. So we felt that even though we could not predict traffic patterns, that if a parent does have to drop off multiple children, it is possible they can make both schools on time in either one of those scenarios. And so then we went back to the feedback and we looked at and we asked them actually of all of them. And then I went back and said, at the same time, you need to take into account that the board is already favoring 2 and 4. And so cabinet voted for option 4, leadership voted for option 4, leadership teams, all the principals. DAC was fine with 2 or 4. They didn't really have a concern. PTA presidents were fine with 2 or 4. MVF was fine with 2 or 4, and DLAC was curious about two, or wanted two. And so my final recommendation is this. Considering everything that's taken place, I think it's important to take into account that next year may not look exactly the same. So what I'm recommending is that next week, the Board of Trustees approve the first bell starting time of 8:25, but that the implementation is delayed to enable the district administration and employee groups to address reopening schedule and operational challenges caused by COVID-19, which means that it will go into effect at the start of the 2022 school year, which is actually what, let's see, this is 2020, 2021. So it'll go into effect at the start of the 2021, 2022 school year. And that gives us enough time to adjust for sort of the challenges that we're faced with now, but also it gives an opportunity for everyone to sort of weigh in because we drew some draft schedules, and it gives people a chance to weigh in to sort of come up with what the final schedule is going to look like. All right. And that is the quick version.
Thank you, Dr. Rudolph. Do I have questions from trustees? Trustee Conley?
So Dr. Rudolph, this presentation is, the final recommendation is different than the slide presentation that was posted linked to the agenda. Will we update that link so that, if people want to go back and read about this and look at the presentation, they can find it?
Yes, we will.
Thank you.
Questions from other trustees? Trustee Blakely?
We're going to adopt a schedule, but delay implementation. Is there any chance if we are back to live school second semester or after the holidays next year, so it's the 20/21 school year, that we might implement it then, like in January, or you just we defer the whole?
I would recommend that we just defer till the 2021, 2022 school year. I think there's going to be enough adjustments that are going to be taking place with the possibility of us closing at any given point in time. And so toss it in a wrinkle because these decisions actually impact 5 schools. So changing the start time of 5 schools with all this uncertainty just doesn't seem like the best approach right now. And so the best thing is just let's keep, at least parents know what time we're currently starting, and they can sort of adjust to that. And we're not going to toss in a new wrinkle and try to figure out what the classes look like, because we already already are faced with a pretty large task of figuring out what this looks like. So I think, and by January, we should know a little bit more about how close we are to a vaccine. We would have went through a flu season. And so we would know for certain how we're going to adjust moving forward. And I think that's just the most prudent thing to do.
Thank you.
Trustee Gutierrez?
The question, Dr. Rudolph. So how would the process work? Would you want this board then to vote on this before our departure for some of us? Or are you wanting this to be dealt by the next board? What's your process look like?
No, so at the next board meeting, so typically the way we've been doing this, unless it's an emergency, is we bring a recommendation to the board, and in the next meeting it will turn into an action item. And so you will vote on this at the next meeting for it to go into implementation.
Understood. Thank you.
Trustee Blakely?
Just one other question. I haven't followed what the high school is doing next year. Are they planning to go ahead and implement next year, or have they made that determination?
I am not sure, but I thought that they already made the choice to switch to start time even before we went into shelter in place. And so I think their decision was made a little bit earlier than us. But I can double check with Nellie and Dr. Myers and ask her. For
some reason, I thought we were leaning, the recommendation before was 8:30 8:30. Is the 8:25 give us more flexibility in terms of the number of schools changing times, or am I just not recalling correctly?
So when we brought it back, we had the latest start time recommendation that we had was 8:25.
Wasn't that because the high school to get from Crittenden to Los Altos could take more than 15 minutes, and if the high school's district was starting at 8:45, that would be a little more challenging. I think that's what it was.
Got it. Okay, yep. Thank you for the clarification. Any other questions, trustees? I believe we have a member of the public on this item, Dr. Rudolph.
Yep. So this one comes from Mike Lerner. Public comment for the regular board meeting on June 4th, agenda item XB, recommendations for middle school start time. One, there's an error on slides 27, 28, options 3 and 4, which lists may require some elementary time to shift earlier as a pro, while at the same item is listed as a con on slide 25, option 1. Number 2, thank you for getting rid of the late start. Keep the schedule the same every day, which is, I would simply say that was consistent feedback from parents across the board. 3, the feedback from groups on slide 34 seemed based on the passing break times. However, the goal, according to slide 23, is to address concerns about break times, not passing times. I would prefer to keep the passing times the same, 3 minutes, to minimize a potential increase in the teacher workdays, or to increase instructional time. 1 minute of passing time adds up to 24 hours of missed instructional time per year. I understand the goal is increasing the break time, but the extra passing time will not necessarily result in on-time student arrival in the classroom. Thanks, Mike Lerner.
Thank you, Mr. Lerner. Are there any additional comments from trustees on this item? Trustee Gutierrez?
One last comment. So, all right. So my little girls are learning the power of collective voice. And my little one, Elena, and her friends, who are in the 6th grade, have voiced their support to have this additional minute in passing time. Because as they put it, you try carrying that backpack from gym class all the way over to Mr. Edgar's class from one side of the campus to the other. 3 minutes is not enough. So I thought I'd share that with everyone here.
Here, Elena. Any other comments from trustees? Okay. Seeing none, we'll move on to item 9C, public hearing on the resolution number 01061820, education protection account.
So this is the
You have to.
So I have to close the meeting, right?
Yeah.
Okay, at 8:58, I will close the regular meeting of the Mountain View Wisconsin School District Board of Trustees and open the public hearing for resolution number 01061820.
Sorry, I jumped in too soon. So this is the public hearing for the education protection account, and attached to the board agenda are of how the district is spending the funds. Part of the report is to show that we are not spending the funds on administrator salaries.
Are there any clarifying questions on this item? Members of the public? Okay, saying there are none. Any additional comments from trustees? Okay, so I close the public hearing at this point because there's no action on this. Okay, at 8:59, I'll close the public hearing on item 9C and restart the meeting of the Mountain View Wisconsin School District Board of Trustees. We move on to item 9D, the budget adoption public hearing. So now I have to close the meeting again.
Yep.
Trustee Blakely, you're muted.
The public hearing thing says recommended action, that the Board of Trustees conduct a public hearing. Oh, I'm sorry. Never mind. I'm sorry. To conduct a public hearing. I thought we needed to take an action. I apologize.
No worries. I'm kind of stumbling through these back-to-back ones here. So I guess I have to, I don't even have the time. At 9 o'clock, we will close yet again the meeting of the Mountain View, the regular meeting of the Mountain View Wisconsin School District Board of Trustees, and open up the public hearing on the 2020-2021 budget adoption at 9 o'clock as well.
All right.
Thank you, Dr. Westover. Sorry, this
No
is
problem.
totally my forte.
Thank you. Sorry, you have two back to back.
That's all good. I'll get there.
All right. So this is the public hearing for our budget adoption for next year. Before getting started, I want to make sure to say thank you to the team that helped pull this together. So the director of is online today, just in case there are some questions. And there's a whole team that helped make sure that we could pull the budget together. So back to referring back to our strategic plan for resource stewardship is that the district will maintain a balanced general fund. However, board resolution states that we can have deficit spending in any year as long as in the third year we have a reserve level between 17 and 20%. And I'm excited today that as we run through the budget for next year that we have a balanced general fund. So recap of our budget process. I was here during the last board meeting where we were talking about the May revise and how it looked completely different than the January governor's proposed state budget. So here we are on June 4th for the public hearing. And I'd like to say that things are a little more or less settled, but if you've been following the news today, we do expect some big changes, most likely on the horizon, but changes that are favorable for the school district. So current year, some revenues, let's see. Revenues, we did see an increase of AV from 6% to 8.3%. And as a reminder, 1% of AV growth is about 500K. We received one-time unrestricted monies from the state, additional lease revenue due to the early payoff of our COP, as well as some YMCA lease revenue. We also, revenues, however, were also down in preschool and cafeteria because of the closure. Expenditures, we had our salary increase. We also had additional expenditures due to COVID-19 in maintenance, food services, and technology, as well as in special ed. So looking at our general fund for our estimated actuals for this year, from our unrestricted programs, we have a deficit spend of 3.1 million with an ending fund balance of 19.1 million. Restricted programs, a deficit spend of 26,000 and a remaining balance of 2 million. For combined, we have a deficit spend of 3.1 million for an ending fund balance of 21 million, leaving with a reserve level of 22%. So I'd like to point out that in the unrestricted programs, this large deficit spend was planned because we purchased Chromebooks to make sure that we could go to one-to-one next year if we have to do distance learning. Looking at a summary of our other funds, we had an increased contribution to preschool as well as food services due to the closure. For our special reserve for capital projects, going along as planned and winding down Measure G. So now moving on to the 2021 budget. As a reminder, this is our anticipated revenue. 91% of it comes from local revenue, which mainly is our property taxes, while only 6% comes from other state revenue and 3% from federal revenue. So as we're listening to what's happening in the news, it's important to know that what's being impacted is a small percentage of our overall revenue for the school district. I'm going to breeze through this slide because I am anticipating this is going to greatly change. The Senate and Assembly have proposed their new budget, which is very different than what the governor has proposed. So now we are going to see what happens over the next few days to see how the governor and the legislator decide to hash it out. We will get something by June 12th because that's the day in which they need to print the budget, which is due on June 15th. These are the programs that we were anticipating cuts to. And looking at our forecasted expenditures. So we are a people business. 77% of our budget goes towards salary and benefits. We've also included ongoing support for textbooks and supplies, as well as other operational expenses to make sure that we can continue to support our students. Looking at our MYP. Some things to note. We have an anticipated increase of AV of 10% for the 2021 year, and then we've planned for 0% in the years out. We've also decreased state LCFF revenue, and we've budgeted the entire lease revenue into the general fund because of the payoff of our COP. We're anticipating revenues to be down in preschool, cafeteria, and after school care. And in our assumptions, we have our step-in column, increased staffing to help with technology demands, increased cafeteria costs, increased technology costs, and increased preschool costs, which are built into our multi-year projections. So looking at our unrestricted programs, we have an ending balance of 21 million. Looking at our restricted programs, an ending balance of 877,000. Combined, we have a slight surplus of $205,000 and a balanced budget and an ending balance of $21.4 million. I was hoping to hear some cheers. So looking at our MYP, so this next year, it leaves us with a reserve level of 24.10%.
Wow.
For the 21-22 school year, we have a deficit spend of 1.6 million with a reserve level of 23%. And for the 22-23 school year, we have a deficit spend of 3.7 million for a reserve level of 18.17. I think we are in very good shape in comparison to some of our counterparts around the state. To talk a little bit about why we see this increase of deficit spend, last time we talked a little bit about how the state had bought down the STRS and PERS contributions of school districts. So we're seeing the impact of that here. But in the 22-23 school year and in the 21-22, that hasn't been guaranteed yet. So we are only accounting for things that have been guaranteed at this point. Looking at the summary of our other funds, we're showing an increased contribution to food services and preschool. And some considerations for the future. We need to continue to plan for uncertainty with our budgeting prudence, and there may be additional costs with reopening of schools and potentially closing them again if needed. Our next steps. I'll be back on June 18th for board action and adoption of the budget and the education protection account. And we'll also continue to monitor the changes daily. And when I say daily, it has been daily that we're getting updates on how things are going. But I'm happy that it seems to be going in a positive direction right now. Any questions?
Thank you, Dr. Westover. This is a really amazing outlook. The only question I really have is, and I know given the situation with the COVID-19, we're not sure what the fall will look like, but are we trying to find like a pot of money in the budget for PPE or masks, or I'm not sure to what degree. I mean, again, it's all guesswork, but to what degree we're sort of creating this line item space, knowing some kind of expenditure is going to be coming our way.
I'm really happy that you asked that. We have put money aside specifically for that purpose, just for anything COVID related. It could be extra hours for people that need to work. It could be extra materials. We also have extra money in our MOT budget to help them with whatever needs to be purchased. So we have that set aside.
That's wonderful. Thank you. I thought I saw Trustee Gutierrez with his hand up.
Yes, thank you, Madam President. Yeah, so just to follow up quickly on that, I had also asked Dr. Rudolph about PPE. He mentioned that we dipped into the reserves about 10 grand to buy some PPE for now. I don't know, well, that's just the first step, right? I'm sure that if we discover that we need more, then we can be able to adjust. So that's a quick update on that, just because it was touched on briefly. But can we go back to slide number 13? Because I didn't really have a chance to see all the programs that were going to be targeted for cuts, and I just wanted to look at that quickly to look at the stuff that I missed on.
Is this 13?
As I'm seeing it. Yeah, 13. I only saw half a column.
Let me go back.
Yeah, there we go.
Yep.
So TI, improvement grants, home to school transportation. Okay, great, thank you.
Sure.
That's the only question I had.
can't see if
I think Devin.
there are other questions from trustees.
Yes, I have a question. Oh, there, now we're all back. So we have beefed up our food services significantly. And I wanted to know if we have budgeted in for, will we be doing the same sort of food service over the summer? And, have we budgeted in for those costs?
Yes. So we will be continuing through the Summer Seamless program to provide meals. There are discussions right now at the state level of how they're going to help schools, because all school districts have been feeding kids. And what the program reimburses is not necessarily enough to cover all of our costs. But we have budgeted in for that, and we do plan to continue to feed over the summer.
Thank you.
And so just a follow-up question. I know we had talked about the lunches for the summer, because I know Allende and had brought that to us before in prior meetings, that we were going to continue for the summer. So in terms of the funding, though, depending how that works out, whether or not we still receive enough money from the state, we'll still continue with the program?
Correct.
Great. Thank you.
Other questions from trustees? Are there members of the public who want to address the board on this item? Any additional comments? Trustee Wheeler?
So I have a question for Dr. Westover. So it's kind of a question comment. So the comment is school board members today got a notice that Capital Advisors Group is going to be doing a presentation at through the county after the state budget has passed to see what actually happened, and that one's free. So does school services do something like that, and will you be attending the school services one?
I'm signed up for the Capital Advisor ones already. School service, I'm sure they will be. I haven't received any notice, but we've been getting lots of webinar invites frequently just because of all the changes. So definitely have the tools to stay up to speed.
Trustee Gutierrez?
I just have one quick comment. I want to thank you, Dr. Westover. This is good news. We don't know what's going to happen. It's always a crapshoot with the budget, regardless who the governor is. But when you have these times, it's also a big challenge to try and figure all this stuff out ahead of time. So to know that we've been able to bridge the gap for this 2021 year, 21-22, that's great news. It's not as severe as it was before. And for the year after that, I think it's somewhat manageable. It just comes down to a matter of trying to figure out how that's going to look like in the future and how much of a big span we're going to have with PPE issues or COVID-19 related issues. But so far, it looks really good, and I'm appreciative of that, and thank you for your work.
And something I may point out is that there was a lot of strategy involved, and Dr. Rudolph had put into place plans to go out for a bond, which then helped pay off the COP. So all of those things had to happen in order to get us into this position. So this isn't something that has just happened over this past year. It took several years in the making to get us to this point.
Well, we're glad to be here, that's for sure. Thank you so much, Dr. Westover. If there are no further comments on this item, I'll move on to item E, the state mandated COVID written report based on the governor's executive order N5620.
So Tamara, I think that was a public hearing. So don't we close that and then
Oh
open
shoot,
the public?
see, this is why I'm terrible at this. Okay, at 9:14, I will close the public hearing and reopen the regular meeting of the Mountain View Wisconsin School District Board of Trustees, and then we shall move on to item E, the state mandated COVID written report based on the governor's executive order N5620.
Okay, so back again to share. Bring up my presentation. Okay, so we have a written report tonight to share with you. It's the COVID-19 operations report. The governor issued his executive order in April, which requires LEAs or districts to complete this written report in lieu of the LCAP, because usually we'd be here presenting the LCAP too. And the report really outlines the changes to the program offerings that we made in response to school closures, the impacts of the closures, and a description of how the district is meeting the duplicated students. So some requirements. The report needs to be approved and adopted by the governing board by July 1st. The report is not approved by the county, but it is submitted to the county in conjunction with our adopted budget. We will post our written report to the homepage of our website. And we had the option of using the state template, which we did. This is just a sample of the template and what it looks like. The template asks us districts to do the following in 300 words or less, which I can say we didn't quite make because we did a lot of work in the last 3 months to support our students. But we were looking at just, again, questions explaining the changes to our program offerings, a description of how we're meeting the needs of our target students, English learners, foster youth, low income, steps taken to continue delivering distance learning, steps to deliver meals, and steps to arrange for student supervision. So highlights, just to go through the report and the highlights in the first section, we had to talk about our program offerings. So we talked a lot about our transition from regular school to distance learning and the stages we went through from online flexible learning to the implementation of our distance learning plan, and then the revision of that distance learning plan, how we communicated through phone calls, social media, school dashboards, websites, excuse me, the challenges that we see in our community, the needs of our families, including meals and access to technology, policy changes, attendance, grading, assessments, and then impacts to the delivery of special education services and how we had to move to virtual services and virtual IEP meetings. In section 2, we listed the ways that we are meeting the needs of our English learners, foster youth, and low-income students. We highlighted our meal and technology distribution plans, the work of our McKinney-Vento liaison and her support for families, the work of our school and community engagement facilitators and at-risk supervisors, the social and emotional supports, and the support through the through CHAC, and the way we did English language development as part of our distance learning plan. In the next section, we really highlighted the steps that were taken to deliver high quality distance learning, and we outlined the different stages we went through, starting with our flexible learning options, our thought exchange to gather feedback, the development of our distance learning plan, the implementation of it and what it looked like, and then the revision of it, along with then our summer 2020 plan and our optional summer learning plans. In section 4, we talked about our plan or our program to deliver school meals while maintaining social distancing, and how we have been able to provide free breakfast and lunch and now dinner available 7 days a week. And I think that one of the staggering things to look at the hard work of our food service department between March 18th and May 26th, we served 172,000 plus meals to our community.
Wow.
In section 5, we talk about a little bit about the supervision. Well, we didn't offer direct supervision. We did partner with the Santa Clara County Office of Education. They had a portal that they worked on that contained ways for families to access childcare for essential workers. And we publicized that and posted that and made sure that the information was available. And we know that the El Camino YMCA is also offering childcare. So our next steps, we're presenting tonight for questions and any discussion you might have. The report will come back next meeting on June 18th. And for approval, we'll post it, and then we'll send the copy to the Santa Clara County Office of Education with our budget. So with that, I am happy to answer questions. And actually, anybody on the team can answer questions because this was a group effort.
Thank you, Ms. Bauer. Trustee Gutierrez?
Yes, so I have a question. So McKinney-Vento, our students, I know they're covered during the academic year, and by law, we are obligated, and it's the right thing to do to help them out. I'm just wondering, for summer school, if they are enrolled in our summer session program, is our liaison a SCEF? Because at this moment, we don't have SCEFs. That's my question.
Our liaison is not a SCEF, and our liaison is only a 10-month employee. So we're gonna have to figure out a plan for how we're going to support them, and that's in the works.
Okay, thank you.
Just any other trustee questions? And I don't believe there's any other members of the public on the call. So how about comments from trustees? Trustee Conley?
172,000 meals is remarkable. And unfortunately, I think we may see that need continue to rise. So I commend everyone and our staff and team who has been working so hard on this.
I'll second that. Any additional comments from trustees? Okay, thank you, Ms. Bauer, for your presentation. We'll move on now to item 10, board updates. If you haven't sent them in to Mr. Rodriguez, please do so. If anyone has any, no, okay. Well, our future board meetings are now listed here. It looks like Trustee Conley has her hand up. I'm not sure for which item.
For future agenda items.
Okay.
So it has come to our attention recently that our Huff School name, there may be some issues regarding the individual for who the school is named after. And I'm wondering if we could add a discussion of that to a future board agenda.
Can I get a second on that? It looks like, okay, absolutely. We'll make sure we agendize this. My pen is high. For one of the next meetings. Thank you, Trustee. Trustee Gutierrez?
Yes, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt. Thank you, Devin, for bringing that up. Appreciate it. I just wanted to follow up on making sure that we also agendize the resolution that we talked about earlier. I don't know for what meeting, but I just don't want us to lose track on that.
Yeah, we had spoken about a resolution condemning racism in our schools. We talked about it might either be a resolution or possibly a policy. I think we have to have further discussion on that. So we'll have to add something to a future agenda.
Sure, and I just have one last request, if it's possible, to a resolution recognizing the work of our friend Melissa at MVEF, Amanini, who I understand is going to leave her position fairly soon. I know in the last 2 years that she's taken over, there's been a great amount of upbeat contributions from members of the community, both financially and whatever capacity that we've asked for. They've always been there to help us out. And I like to think that through her leadership and her inspiration of bringing us together to make a difference for the kids has made a strong difference and impact in the lives of those kids and of our district. And then saying thank you, I'd like to suggest a resolution on our behalf and appreciating her contributions as MVEF leader. I'm hoping there's a second for that, but that's
I wholeheartedly concur.
Done.
Thank you.
Great idea. Thank you, trustees.
In that vein, something we might want to look at in the future, a long time ago, there used to be, weren't they like FY Education for the World Ahead Awards? Occasionally when members of the public or the community went above and beyond to do something like, you know, the parcel tax campaign was completed, or, you know, Melissa's amazing work with MVF. There were other things, but we had these little awards and we'd do like this very quick little presentation and present those to people that had done that work. And that might be something we might want to consider resurrecting, and not necessarily in the same form, but it might be nice. I think it would be a nice thing to do. Anyone else?
I don't think I understand what it means, but it sounds like a genuine, you know, positive thing to do. So yeah, I'm for
like
it.
A little plaque, and then, you know, they'd come to the meeting and you'd thank them. It's kind of like a resolution.
But like an annual award where we acknowledge like a member of the public or our community for their outstanding service to schools.
Yeah, exactly. But it wasn't necessarily an annual award. It was a from time to time thing. It didn't happen at every meeting. It probably happened, what, Ellen, 3 or 4 times a year, something like that.
Okay, I'm in favor, sure. I know we had started doing verbal acknowledgement of large donations too. So I think all these efforts can only be beneficial in terms of acknowledging, you know, the public's help in all of these efforts. And so, yeah, so I'm in favor. And are there any other items people are requesting be added to future board meeting dates? We have the 2 new dates added here, the July 2nd meeting, which will follow our next meeting on June 18th. We have an additional meeting we've added in early August, and the last 2 meetings listed here to reiterate are in response to the ever evolving situation with COVID-19, and we can see where we're at and where the county is placing us at those times. Trustee Conley.
The County Office of Education just released a recommended resolution on digital equity that is also supported by the Digital Equity Coalition. So that might be something that we want to take a look at too.
Or future board item. Okay.
I mean, I don't know if it would be a separate item or if it would be part of the consent agenda, or it just, you know.
Okay. Got it. Okay. All right, with that, unless there are any further comments or inputs from anyone, at 9:26, we will adjourn this meeting. Board of Trustees.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Bye.
Everyone.